Now, in case you're a little bit lost still, you don't have to call 110 because the next topic on the list is a 101 instead. And for that one, we'll ask one member of Pierre's team, which is Ewann. I don't know where. Oh, there you are. You were somewhere else on stage. So he's not giving the 110, but he's giving the 101, huh? Thanks.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today at Gaia-X in Luxembourg. As said, I'm Ewann Gavard. I'm the technical leader of the CTO team of the Gaia-X Association. And if you have not seen this presentation already, I will go quickly and deeply in what is inside Gaia-X right now. And I won't speak about specifications. I will speak about software and technologies. So, we will speak about the technologies and standards that are used in Gaia-X. You saw them a bit on Pierre's presentation, but I will go a bit deeper. We will speak about the document and specifications we built the software on, and I will give you an overview of the current state of the implementation. I won't have time to make a demo, but feel free to ask. We have multiple demos with the Wizard, with the Jupyter Notebook, so feel free to ask the team if you want a personal demo. In terms of technologies and standards, we mostly use things that are outside Gaia-X. We are using technologies that are provided mostly by the W3C, by the OpenID Connect Alliance, and this kind of things. We will speak about verifiable credential, JSON LD, JSON Web Signature, DIDs, Shackle, and many more. So let's start quickly. Verifiable credentials, you heard them already. They are used to represent pretty much any form of credential. A permit, a license, represent a person, a company, services, data. You can represent whatever you want with verifiable credential. The main thing in a verifiable credential is that it's cryptographically signed by the issuer, meaning that when you share it to the world is able to verify that you were the issuer and the data were not tampered during transfer or intercepted by someone in the middle. The VCs are written using JSON LD, so JSON link data, which means that you can intricate and bind credentials and claims between them. One credential can be self-sufficient, but in Gaia-X, we do use a linked credential. For example, this is a legal participant in the Gaia-X ecosystem, and you can see that the field JX legal registration number points on another credential, meaning that I have this credential and I can have many more and intricate them. This means that we are using JSON link data or JSON LD. You have the same notions than in other languages. For example, XML, we do have context that allow you to have your own context and to not enter in conflict with other notion. You can reuse, for example, the name address in your context and not clash with a vCard address or an organization address. You also have this notion of link, allowing you to make a graph of credentials and claims, targeting other nodes, making rules on other nodes. And finally, JSON LD is just a single one representation for RDF, which is a more global representation data framework. So here you have the JSON LD representation, but that's also a perfectly valid representation for a verifiable credential. So basically, a graph. But this is also a representation of the same data. This time, all the fields are expanded, so you can see that each field is prefixed by its context, meaning that each field can be targeted independently. And finally, this is also a representation of a credential, this time with triples, meaning that you can take these triples and put them in a graph database, for example, and query the database the way you are used to. Verifiable credential would not exist without the JSON Web Signature. So again, another standard from the W3C. We owe them a lot for what they provide to the community. The JSON web signature allows to ensure the data consistency. It's calculated and computed using the data. It references the user's DID. I will go back to the DID in a few seconds. But basically, you reference who's the issuer exposes its cryptographic material, and you can verify the trustworthiness of the signature. In Gaia-X, we use a compact sign that allows us to limit the size of your payload because the JSON web signature can embed the whole payload or not, and we chose to go for the shorter version to limit the amount of data that will go through the network. We do have two different implementations running at the same time right now. We have this way of computing the signature. You prepare your credential, you canonize using your DNA 2015, like it's written in the spec, you hash it using a SHA-256, you compact sign, and you append the proof to your credential. That's it, you have a credential. But the specs were a bit unclear, and we might have misinterpreted them. So we also have a second way of preparing the data for signature. We still canonize using your DNA 2015. We do canonize the proof fields, except the GWS that does not exist anymore. We hash, we concatenate the credential and the proof, and we sign it. This might look a bit scary. I know it's still a bit early, but the association provides a library to do that, meaning that you don't have to care about how you have to sign or verify. I think that's Vincent that did this library. You can just use it. It's in TypeScript. You can use it, and you have a perfectly valid JSON web signature. And this signature will be valid on Tagus, but also on the upcoming Loire release. So speaking of signatures, that means that you must be able to find at least a public key to validate a signature. And that's where we go to decentralized identifiers, still from the W3C. The DIDs allow you to be self-sovereign and declare yourself and host yourself your identity. You will put on your domain, your company domain, a file saying, OK, I'm the owner of this domain. I have this public key. You can use it to verify whatever credential I'm supposed to have emitted. So the DID will contain the public key as said. At the moment, Gaia-X only supports one version of DID, which is DID web, meaning that for now you have to have a domain and an Apache or an Nginx server running, a few files on this server, and voila, you are good to go for Gaia-X. I put like 2 examples of DIDs to explain how they are resolved in the real world. The first DID contains a path, so it's resolved to HTTPS, and that's important. You won't be able to have DIDs with just HTTP. You need secure HTTP. And you will retrieve a DID.json, and that's it. And if you are on the root of your domain, some of you that uses Auth0 or Keycloak might be familiar with this .well-known path. You will find your DID in the .well-known path at the root of your domain. And this is what a DID looks like. Basically a JSON file, well, a JSON LD file, you might recognize it now, with your ID. You are the issuer, so that's your ID, and the list of your verification methods. Say it differently, the list of your public keys. And that's it. You have a DID, you know how to sign using our library, and you know how to write JSON, you are ready for Gaia-X. And if you don't know how to prepare a DID, we also have a lib for that. So yeah, we prepared a lot the ground for you. You just have to provide your company domain name, your X509 certificate, and you have a DID. So pretty magical. I think last but not least on the technologies from the W3C we use, that's Shackle. Some of you might be familiar with XSD from XML. So basically that's the same thing, being able to verify the structure of a document. In our ecosystem, we usually call them shapes because that's what they do. They shape the JSON you will send. And they are allowing us to validate the RDF document structure. Not all constraints can be expressed in shackle, meaning that in the compliance engine in Tagus, will not be the case in Loire, we do have some business rules that are implemented with code. And this is what a shape looks like. So you can see that a legal participant should have a legal registration number, might have a parent organization and survey organization, will have a headquarter address and a legal address. And that's it. It's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? Speaking of specification, Pierre mentioned them, but the association is providing many documents I will speak for Tagus because that's the running version right now. We had the ICAM document, so the Identity and Credential Access Management document, specifying, for example, that we are using verifiable credential and the GWS 2020 signature. The policy rules and labeling document that was specifying, for example, the terms and conditions and the labels. We had the architecture document specifying globally the architecture of Gaia-X, the data exchange document for the data product and this kind of description. And for Tagus, we had the trust framework that is now merged in the PRLD and architecture document. All these docs are available on docs.gaia-x.eu. You are free to browse them. You are free to make comments on them. I think the feature is deployed. You can just highlight a portion of text you don't like and suggest a modification. So feel free to read them. Feel free to give feedbacks, because that's how the community will grow with all your feedbacks. And for example, this is how the legal participant was described in the Trust Framework 2210. So all the fields I mentioned in the shape, they are here, and it's just that we transform this text and tables into software. If I have to summarize the Tagus specifications in a slide, well, it's quite easy. Everything is described using verifiable credentials, and everything is written down using JSON LD. Each issuer has to provide terms and conditions, and the terms and conditions, they are like 2 lines, and if you don't want to read them, just be nice and inform everyone if your key is publicly available on the internet, if someone has tampered in your infrastructure, or this kind of stuff. The participants have to provide a legal registration number issued by a notary, meaning that your company has a legal existence. On production, so on /v1 for the deployed versions, you must use either an EVSSL, so Extended Validation SSL certificate, or an eIDAS certificate to sign your credentials. The reason is that those 2 certificates legally bind you to the credentials you are issuing. Only a few providers right now are accredited to be Gaia-X compliance issuers, meaning that they are allowed to run the software and to give you the Gaia-X compliance credentials. Many more are to come. We had the announcement of the OVH Digital Clearinghouse. I know that some of them are already in the pipe to be accredited, so many more to come, and I'm happy for that because that means more decentralization and more distribution. And finally, to claim being Gaia-X compliant, to claim to be Gaia-X whatever, the requirement is to run all your verifiable credentials through one of the Gaia-X compliance engine run by these Gaia-X issuers, accredited issuers. And the only proof that you are Gaia-X compliant is a Gaia-X compliance credential, and that's it. So speaking of the implementation, we have a first version that is production ready since more than 6 months now. I will say almost a year. The name is Tagus. We are implementing totally the Trust Framework 2210, participants, service offering, all kinds of resources, physical and software. We also implemented partially the policy and rule labeling document 2211, meaning that you have access to the service offerings labels level 1. Given the state of the specs at the moment, either you are compliant with all the labels or not. which is a bit lame, but still you can claim to be compliant with the service offering labels level 1. The lab team also provides quite a lot of tools. We have a wizard that you can use to issue your first credentials. You won't be able to have production-ready credentials using the wizard, but still you can play a bit and discover JSON LD and signature. We do provide the libraries I mentioned, so the DID library, a signature library. We also have a DID validator library that will allow you to, from a DID, retrieve the document, retrieve the key, and validate the signature of VCs. And we also have a page on the website that allows you to see what are the running clearinghouses, what version they are running on, and yeah, choose the one you want. There are no differences in the software run by any of the clearinghouse. They run the same software. The only difference between clearinghouses are the services they can provide on top of the mandatory core services. We are human, after all, and we made some mistakes. One of the biggest one is the fact that our namespace, the Gaia-X namespace for the JSON LD context, is very complicated. It's referring to a development URL and so on. This has changed already for the Loire release. You will have a nice w3id.org/Gaia-X namespace that will be way more comfortable for everyone. We also know that the shapes are not perfectly aligned with the specs. For example, we are using the name legal participant instead of legal person. We have a few fields that are different, I think, of the address and the country code, for example, that we know. Yeah, we went quick and dirty, so some mistakes. We also know that the types needs to be in the credential subject to be valid. Not to go too deep, but basically the shapes are referring to path in the RDF, and right now you need to specify the type of your credential in the subject and not only on the VC itself. That's a subject of one of the hacks for this session. Maybe improve a bit the link ML generator to be able to have an alternate path and these kind of things. And if you are interested in this subject, we have this issue that is open, so feel free to give us your opinion on that. Some software architecture. I'm speaking a lot on slides and everything, but we do have software running, and that's the current state of the architecture for Tagus. So we do have those 3 mandatory components, the compliance engine, the notary, and the registry. We have this optional wizard that you can run for yourself if you want. And we have the credential event service. That is a mean that the association provide to allow you to share your credentials. We had nothing. We have this thing now. If you have better idea, decentralized idea, feel free to reach out, because that's like a way to do it, but it's not the best way. This software architecture diagram, as everything else, is open source and available on our repositories. If you want to take a look at it and can find it, feel free to go for the team. They must know where it is. You can also have a peek of the Loire architecture software architecture document. It's also already available and updated as we move forward on Loire. You can also see that we are using several external APIs. The notary, obviously, is the one that uses the more APIs, because we are interrogating the commission for your VAT. If you are using a VAT ID, you can use URI as source of data for your company legal registration number, and even the glyph. And if I'm not mistaken, in the Loire release, you will be able to use Open Corporate for the clearinghouse that will have an API key for that. And the registry, I mentioned that you have to use specific certificates to be Gaia-X compliant and to go through, meaning that we have two sources of truth right now for those allowed certificate. The ADAS trust service providers list provided by the Commission, and we are using Mozilla Certificate Authority list for the EVSSL and for all the SSL certificates on non-production. I'm looking forward to integrating maybe the Japanese ADAS-like certificates in the near future. We already discussed it. They look to be going for X509 certificate architecture, so it should be like a piece of cake to add them. More useful links and info. We do have a small workshop that I won't be able to run today, but we have a nice Jupyter notebook if you want to try issue your first credential, see how it goes in terms of code. You can also find the slides from this presentation in the same repository. Obviously, the open source community welcomes you. We have a nice and strong open source community with a lot of people giving interesting talk, giving news and feedback. So feel free to join us. And as already mentioned, almost all the CTO team is present at this event, wearing nice flowery shirts. So feel free to reach out to us if you want a demo, if you want information of any kind. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. I think I catch up the small delay we had. So I will take a few minutes to speak about the hackathon. So as you can see, we had to merge the hackathon room in this room. So the hackathon is supposed to take place on your right, my left. We have plugs and sockets everywhere on this part of the room. So feel free to settle as you want. The official kickoff should be in half an hour after a coffee break, so that everyone is pumped up with caffeine. And yeah, feel free to reach out to us if you have any question and want a bit of support or anything. Thank you.